in which one here?
Just go to the next page, so click that arrow at the bottom.
Okay.
And 4.7.
Okay. Start with 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's use the quadratic formula here. What is the quadratic formula? When you have a quadratic and you're trying to solve it, it's x equal minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I don't know how to help you memorize this. Some teachers will give a little song that you can sing, kind of like the ABCs, to memorize it. The only thing I try to tell people is that if you look at this as two parts, that is the equation for the vertex of a quadratic, right? Minus b over 2a. So that's helpful. And then the rest of it, this thing actually has its own name called a discriminant. And the reason it does is because it's very worthwhile knowing whether that quantity is going to be positive or negative. Because if it's negative, we're going to be taking the square root of a negative number, which is imaginary solutions. So that helps me if I remember that the quadratic is a combination of the formula for the vertex combined with plus or minus the square root of the discriminant. The discriminant, incidentally, is b squared minus 4ac. It's not the square root of that. So that's the discriminant. So, in our equation, what is a, b, and c?
Isn't a x squared?
No, these are all coefficients. These are all numbers. A, B, and C are always numbers. So what's the coefficient of x squared?
X.
1.
1.
1 just isn't written. Right? That's 1x squared, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the coefficient of, what's b?
-7.
And what's c?
-3.
Okay, so that's what we want to plug in. So what's minus b?
Negative. What do you mean?
Okay, we need minus b. b is -7, so what's minus b? What goes right there?
-7?
+7. See why it's positive?
No, I don't.
Okay, it's a minus b, and b is -7. So two negatives sitting next to one another mean positive.
Alright.
Okay, so it's +7 plus or minus the square root of, what goes in here?
7 squared.
49, positive 49, minus 4 times 1. And you got to be a little careful here on how you write this. It's real easy to write that in a way that it looks like you're subtracting 3 instead of multiplying all three of these together. Now, what's 2a?
Would it be 45?
Hold on. What's 2a? I got to have a 2a under here. A is 1. 2a is 2. Okay, now I want to simplify that. So I got 7 plus or minus, what goes in the square root?
2.
Do 49 minus 4 times a minus 3.
Hold on. 49 minus a what?
Okay, multiply these three numbers together. What do you get? 4 times 1 times minus 3.
Negative 12.
Okay, so I'm going to replace that with a negative 12. Now what is
Okay.
inside the middle? What's 49 minus a minus 12?
$37.
No, these turn into pluses. 61.
61.
All divided by 2. Now, it wants your answers as two separate answers. So if this is my answer, what are my two solutions for x?
2 and 7.
7 plus that divided by 2 is one answer. 7 minus that divided by 2 is the other answer.
Alright.
Now, what it's going to accept here is anybody's guess. You know what I mean? Because of the...
Yeah.
So let's see. What should we put? Should we put 7?
Well, you can...
The best answer is really to break these up into two fractions, and I get 7 halves plus root 61 over 2. Let's see if it likes that answer.
Alright.
Let's see. Use integers or fractions for any numbers in the expression. Use a comma to separate answers. So I don't need parentheses, right?
Right.
So the first answer is 7 halves plus root 61 divided by 2. 7 halves plus root 61 divided by 2. There's one answer. Separate answers by a comma. What's the second answer?
Wouldn't it be negative that?
Yeah, well, not negative of that, but 7 halves minus root 62, which is not the negative of this, but it's close. It's the conjugate. 7 halves minus root 61 divided by 2. Now, the only thing they might want is parentheses, the beginning and the end. How many chances do I get?
Like 3.
Okay, they didn't need it. Now, whether they would have accepted it as one fraction instead of broken into 2 like this, I'm not sure. Depends on the computer. What is the discriminant of the quadratic equation? Well, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So it's a number. It's always a number. And it's not x equals a number. It's the discriminant is equal to a number. So what's B? What's A, B, and C in this quadratic?
1, -4, and 4.
So what's this equal to?
Hold on. Is the best way to do this just to write it out and just solve it that way?
I think the best way to do it is to actually do this. In other words, plug it in parentheses, all your values. A is 1, C is 4, like this. Now all you have to do is convert this to a number. What's minus 4 squared?
16.
Minus 16 equals 0. So the discriminant is 0.
Alright.
So the fact that I'm sorry, did you say, excuse, wait a second?
You said, is there no solution since it's 0?
No, hold on. Let's talk about the discriminant. If the discriminant is greater than 0, then you're going to be taking the square root of some positive number, right?
Yeah.
And you will have two real solutions. You'll have the plus solution and the minus solution. No matter what the minus b is or the 2a, you're going to have two real solutions as long as the discriminant is positive. If the discriminant is negative, then you're going to be taking the square root of a negative number, but you're still going to have two solutions, but they'll both be complex or imaginary. The third case is when the discriminant is exactly equal to 0. That means this whole thing is 0, and you end up with just b over 2a, or minus b over 2a, without the plus or minus. Because you're doing plus or minus 0, so there's no plus or minus. So when the discriminant is exactly equal to 0, you have exactly one real solution. So you got three possibilities. You either have two reals, two imaginaries, or one real. Since the discriminant was equal to 0, we have precisely one real. Six next? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have an equation here. It's quadratic. Where x is the amount that you charge for these boxes of flower seeds. P is the profit that you make. Okay? In other words, if you charge 0, your profit is minus $118. You see that?
Yeah.
Their question is, what's the smallest amount that you can charge to make X to make a profit of $494? Well, I'm going to plug in $494 there and solve this equation. round to the nearest cent. I hate questions like this.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason I do is because it's absolutely, completely unnecessary to make people deal with these big numbers and fractions. In other words, we could get exactly the same point if we had a nice, simple quadratic that we could solve by factoring or whatever. We don't, so we need to solve it. How do you solve this? How do you solve that problem right there?
Wouldn't you just add the two x's and then
No,
add...
I'm sorry, I wrote it wrong. That's x squared. So you can't add that x squared to the other x.
Then
In
I'd
other words, it's like any quadratic. How do you solve a quadratic?
get x by itself.
You use the quadratic formula. But first of all, you got to get it in standard format, which is 0 on one side, everything else on the other. How do I do that?
By getting x on one side, basically?
No. You want 0 on one side, everything else on the other.
Then you're just
That's the way.
subtract
Yes.
negative 494.
That's the way you solve all quadratics, pretty much, is by putting 0 on one side, getting everything else on the other. Now you have minus 612. Okay, now we have something that looks more familiar as a quadratic. I'm not even going to try to factor it. Let's just plug it directly into the quadratic formula.
Alright.
So what's x equal to? What's minus b?
Negative 36.
What comes next?
Negative 612.
No, it's b squared minus 4ac. So it's 36 squared minus 4 times a, which is minus 0.5, times c, which is minus 612. All over 2a, which is minus 1. You with me?
Yeah.
See where I got everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Notice that we have minus there, and minus there. 3 minuses make a minus. 2 minuses make a plus. But when all of these are basically multiplying. In other words, well, hold on a moment. Let's do this math. What is 4 times minus 0.5? 4 times minus a half.
6?
It's 2.
Oh.
4 times a half is 2. 4 times minus a half is minus 2. So that part is minus 2 times a minus 612. It's going to be minus 1224. So I'm going to erase these three numbers and put 1224. They were all minus, so there's a minus sign in front of that. Is that correct? Let's see. It was b squared minus 4 times 2 negatives. No, that's a positive now. You have a calculator? What's 36 squared? Here, I got one. That's 1296. So 1296 minus 1224 equals 72. So I can replace everything in there with a 72. Now you see why I hate these kind of problems?
Yeah.
Because they unnecessarily use these giant numbers. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
Okay, now we got to reduce square root of 72.
Okay, so
up here on the right, I'm going to write square root of 72. Can you think of any factors of 72 where one of them's a perfect square? Go through your perfect square numbers and see if any of them divide into 72. Starting at the bottom. 4 does.
4 and 18.
4 does and 9 does. 18 does. But more importantly, 36 does. 18's not a perfect square number.
Alright.
The only numbers you want to consider are 4, 9, 16, 25, and 36. These are your perfect square numbers. Well, 4 goes into it, but it's not the biggest perfect square number that divides into it. 36 is. 36 goes into 72 twice. So 36 times 2 is what that splits into, and what does that become? What's the square root of 36 times square root of 2 equal? What's square root of 36?
It's 120, or...
Square root. 6.
Isn't...
6 times 6 is 36. Therefore, the square root of 36 is 6. Get it?
Yeah.
What's the square root of 25?
5.
Okay. So I'm going to replace this square root of 72 with 6 root 2. Same thing. Okay?
Alright.
Now, what's our answer going to be?
Is the square root of 6?
Well, the thing we have to deal with is this negative 1 in the bottom. If I separate this into 2 fractions, which I'm going to, what's the left part equal? What's minus 36 divided by minus 1?
Oh, 36.
Okay. And then this plus or minus divided by the minus stays plus or minus plus if you like. Doesn't matter. There's still going to be 2 answers. So that's what x is equal to, is 36 plus or minus 6 root 2. So what am I going to put for my 2 answers?
Would it be x equals 6 and then...
Hold on. Let's go back and look at these answers.
It's 36, I didn't mean 6.
Right. The question says, first of all, this is 2 different answers, right? That's x equal 36 plus 6 root 2. It's also equal to 36 minus 6 root 2. Make sure you understand that.
Alright.
Okay, in other words, it's a quadratic. You expect 2 different answers. Their question says, what's the smallest amount you can charge and make a profit of $494? So which of these answers do I want?
The second one?
Yeah, that's a smaller number, isn't it? And it's not negative. Root 2 is 1.4, so 6 times root 2 is maybe 9. So it's still a positive number. But let's see how they want it. Round to the nearest cent. do want to make it tough on us here. So let's see. 6 times the square root of 2 equals, no, hold on, square root of 2 square root of 2 equals 1.4142. Let's multiply that by 6. So now we got 36 minus 8.485. Well, what is that? That looks to be 27.515. Rounding that to the nearest cent, 27 and 52. 27.52 should be the answer. Well, that's everything I did.
So we just mess up with the math.
Probably. That's why they give you these problems. It's not hard enough, but they got to give you all these big numbers so you can do math errors. Let's see if I can spot my error. Make sure I got the equation right to begin with. Minus 0.5x squared plus 36x minus 118. Well, 494, is that the right number? 494. So I'm going to subtract 494 from 118. If I add those two numbers together, I get 612. Okay, so this is correct. This part here. So now the only thing we have to do is plug it into the quadratic properly. Well, that was minus 36 plus or minus the square root of b squared, 36 squared minus 4 times a, which is minus a half, times c, which is minus 118. Which is minus 2 times minus 118, which is, I did make a mistake, which is 236.
Oh,
in other words, that is 236. So now we got 36 squared equals 1296 minus 236. What? Hold on. C is not 118. C is 612. Let's go back and do this again here. C is minus 612. So it's minus 612. And then when I double that, it's 1224. Minus 1224. And I have 36 times 36. 1296 minus 1224. That's 72. So now I have minus 36 plus or minus square root of 72 is the square root of 36 times 2, so that's 6 root 2, all divided by 2a, which is minus 1. So again, that's 36 minus 6 root 2. Root 2 equals, hold on, 1.41. I'm going to multiply it by 6. Ah, I got the wrong number last time. Interesting. This time I got 8.48. Oh no, that's what I got last time. And when I multiply that, I get 27.514. Rounds down, not up.
Oh.
For some reason I had a 5 last time. Oh, I know why. Because I ignored these two digits and subtracted the 5 and ended up with a 5 here, and then I rounded up. Boy, I tell you what, it's easy to make that mistake. So it's 51, not 2. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
They would do that. Absolutely ridiculous. All right. What is the discriminant here? What's A?
9.
What's B?
3.
C?
6.
So what is B squared minus 4AC equal to?
That'd be 3 squared minus 4, 9, 6.
And I do think this is the best way to do it, is to plug everything in like that, instead of trying to multiply those out in your head. Because a lot of times you have multiple negative signs there also. So this is, again, 36 times 6 is 216, yeah. So what is that equal to?
Would it be 45, 30?
I think it's minus 207. 9 minus 216.
Oh, yeah.
Minus 207, right?
Yep.
That's the discriminant. Minus 207. How many solutions do we have, and what kind are there?
One real solution.
We got a negative. Our discriminant was negative. What does that mean? We're going to take the square root of a negative number. What does that mean?
2.
Imaginary solutions. So which answer?
Imaginary, then wouldn't that be no?
Yep. All right. I think that's a good... You were just doing a half hour tonight, weren't you?
Yeah.
That's a good place to stop. Let's see. Let me save it. And log out. And you're good to go.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome, Tucker. Talk to you next time. Let's see. I went ahead. Yeah, I canceled your regular Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
Is your mom just going to make him online?
Yeah, I think...
If you like, I could give you this time slot as a permanent Tuesday night time slot if you want. But I don't know if this is always available for you or not.
Yeah, actually, I think that might work this time every Tuesday.
Should we do that? Shall I make it permanent?
I'll have my mom do it just in case that won't work. I'll have her do it online.
Okay. She'll have to do it each and every time, but...
Oh, or I can just tell you next time.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
Right.
Talk to her about it and see if you want this permanent spot. We'll take it. If you want to make it 45 minutes, we could. We can make it an hour, whatever.
All right.
Talk to you next time, Tucker.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.